Welcome back to another episode of Pizza and Parsecs. We are here, ladies and gentlemen, giving the people what they want. I'm Dave.
I'm Liv.
Let's talk about Valentine's Day.
Okay. We both worked.
This is true.
We both had to work because we were working people, making that dough.
Yes, we both work during the week and pretty much only see each other on the weekends.
Yeah, because we work opposite schedules.
This is true. I work a regular 9-to-5 corporate job, and then you have your...
I work a normal 3 to 9 non-corporate job. It's normal for me, but it's not normal for everybody else. So I have the weird job.
I don't think it's a weird job.
Well, thank you. I don't think yours is a weird job.
Aww.
Anyway, I came over after work, though, and you had the whole house decorated.
I did.
It was gorgeous.
I had worked from home that day.
Without telling me.
Yes, without telling you.
I didn't know this.
Because on Fridays, you usually come over around 6:30 or so.
Right.
Which, when I work from home, that gives me about an hour and a half to prep the house and do whatever I need to do before you come over.
Right.
So I spent that time slaving away in the kitchen and getting candles all set up everywhere. And we made fajitas.
Well, you made fajitas.
I made fajitas.
I just constructed my fajitas.
They were brilliant constructions. Like, never have I seen such a vision of a fajita
I
before.
blew out my second fajita.
I know, and it was so gorgeous.
It, exploded down the bottom. I had to get a second tortilla for on top to wrap it up in, bandage it up. It was funny.
It was you thinking on the fly. That's what I love about you.
Well, I think you suggested it, to be honest.
That's what I love about you.
Aw, I take your suggestions. Well, and to backtrack a little bit, usually if you work from home on Fridays, I'll come over after I take a dance class Friday morning. But I didn't know you were home, so I just went home and probably took a nap. But yeah, it was beautiful. You had all these tea light candles and you had food. It was so fun.
I set the stage.
You did.
Well.
Oh, yes.
One thing that I love about our relationship is we don't really need an excuse to have these kinds of celebrations. Because for me, year-round is an opportunity to celebrate you, to celebrate us. And I fully take advantage of that.
This is true. You do. And that's new for me. I don't know, I feel like in past relationships, that was never something I experienced. So it's still, for me, that's new and fun. Have random celebrations. You gave me a quinceañera for no reason whatsoever. You're just let's do it.
You were having a bad day.
I was having a really bad day.
And I wanted to do whatever I could to make you feel better and give you a reason to celebrate. I asked you, have you ever had a quinceañera before?
And my answer was, no, I'm Italian.
So I said, let's throw you a quinceañera.
That was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I love that about our relationship. It's yes, Valentine's Day can be seen as another day, but it's just another reason to celebrate our relationship.
It's just more scheduled farther in advance.
Yes.
As opposed to another Olivia Day.
Or Dave Day.
Or Dave Day.
I enjoyed it. And then we exchanged gifts before we ate.
This is true. And
yours isn't done yet. Half of yours isn't done yet.
Y'all, this thing was so cool. So Liv here has been working tirelessly on creating a comic book on how we met.
Yeah.
And it looks so dope.
I can't take the credit for the idea, though, because I got it from The Office.
Well, from what I saw, it's better than any of the other content that I've seen on The Office.
Well, thank you. I love The Office, but I got you something else, so that way you weren't left with nothing.
This thing is so cool. So, you know how growing up, always on our coffee table was a book from Norman Rockwell with Norman Rockwell paintings. It was always the most boring thing for me to look at. And I've never understood what's the point of a decoration that you don't do something with. Or an accessory that you don't really do something with, you know?
Right. I mean, it's a conversation starter, but...
But if you've never done anything with it, then
right.
Then you can't have that conversation.
Right.
Not once did I ever see my parents open up that book.
Oh, okay. Well, they just put it there. That's fun.
But what you've done...
I've done something cool.
Is the best conversation starter. You got me the Justice League 100 Greatest Moments, like, coffee table book.
Yeah.
And it just goes throughout history. It introduces you to the origins, all of the big important moments throughout the Justice League timeline. And it is so cool.
It's pretty dope. I saw it and I was like, I have got to get this for you. So it was like the coolest thing.
The only reason it's not on my coffee table right now is because I've been reading it up here.
I figured because it's underneath your Neon Genesis manga. And then you got me, like, the coolest thing on the planet. We're going to see Terminus in March. And I get to see Tara Lee dance. I'm, like, so excited. And John Walker and Christine Winkler and Christian. All these people that I, like, grew up seeing.
So for those of the folks listening, all of our listenership, who is Terminus? What is Terminus? What's a Terminus?
I don't actually know why they call themselves Terminus.
Probably because they are able to say they're called the Terminators, and that's really cool. That's metal. Yeah, that could be accurate. I'd have to double check those facts, but that could totally be accurate. Don't double check it. I just answered the question. Moving along.
Terminus is a company consistent of former Atlanta Ballet principal dancers. A lot of them ended up, like, moving on and moving away from Atlanta Ballet, but still wanted to dance, and they created their own modern ballet company, which is super cool because they're all extremely talented in ballet and in modern, so getting to see how they put their own spin on it, creating their own academy, essentially. I'm so excited. I haven't seen them yet. I've known about them since they started up. I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago. It was before I moved back. When I did move back, it was like, oh, you got to take class at Terminus. Oh, you got to take class at Terminus. I'm like, I do not have the time, nor do I have the, like, ability to wrap my head around driving all the way to Atlanta for an hour-and-a-half Terminus class and then driving all the way back. That's just a lot of driving. But we get to see them in their show, and I'm so excited because that's exciting. And it's at Kennesaw, my school that I didn't finish. But it's at my school. Can't call it my alma mater because I didn't graduate.
You can call it your alma.
What?
Your alma.
My alma?
Yeah, because you didn't finish it.
This is true. I did not finish, but for good reasons. Then, what did we do?
We sat down and watched an amazing movie.
It was so good.
We watched the Olivia Wilde flick Booksmart.
It was so good.
I would describe it as Superbad with women, but done in a more classy way.
Yeah. I got Superbad meets Easy A meets Scott Pilgrim versus the World vibes. That was the vibe I got from it. Like, if the three of those combined into one movie, the, like, excellence that Easy A was, and then the creativity that Superbad and Scott Pilgrim versus the World was all in one, it was just, that's what I described it as.
It was just a lot of fun to watch.
It was so funny.
It's been a while since we've laughed like that during a movie.
Yes. Go watch Booksmart if you're of age and need a good movie. It's definitely, I think it was, rated R?
Yes.
And it had, like, a really good ending to it, too. It wasn't, like, one of those atypical endings. Like, I didn't predict the last minute in 30 seconds to actually happen.
Double stamp of approval over here. So, with that...
Are we making a transition to another movie we're talking about?
No.
That we've also seen?
No.
Don't go see The Babysitter. If you have Netflix, don't watch The Babysitter. Just let me put that out there right now.
No, go see The Babysitter right now. Drop whatever you're doing. Pause this podcast. Go watch The Babysitter on Netflix.
That was another... I feel like we kind of took Valentine's Day and made it like a weekend thing.
We
because
did.
We only really had the evenings this weekend because I'm a part of another podcast and we had recording on Sunday and I have rehearsal on Saturday. So we only had like the evenings. So we kind of had a cluster of Valentine's Day. But we watched The Babysitter.
It was absurd.
We did it on purpose, though. We knew that it was going to be a bad movie because we've had such a good streak with good movies. We needed something to, like, break up that. So if we saw something that we really wanted to see and it was a part of that streak and it was bad, we'd be extra disappointed.
Right. If we're going to see a bad movie, we want it to be of our own free will.
Yes.
Like, it was a conscious decision to seek out this bad movie.
And it was a bad movie.
It was awesomely bad, though.
This is true.
It was so entertaining.
Exactly. And I think that's why why I wanted to bring it up, because it's like, it was so bad, but it was an entertaining bad. It was a train wreck where no one got hurt, except in this movie, everybody got hurt. Let's just be real. But that you cannot look away from. You're just like, this is slowly going downhill. Oh, it plummeted in like 0.5 seconds. Okay, great. It's still going down. Oh, and it's still going down. It was just funny bad.
That's what we were looking for. So that was a success in my book.
Well, then we watched another bad movie.
You think we watched a bad movie.
Yes.
And to be clear, we are not going to agree on this.
No.
But before we dive into The Phantom Menace, Liv, what were you doing 20 years ago? The year that The Phantom Menace came out.
Okay, so I was 8. What was I doing I was dancing. I was homeschooled. We had just moved into the house. We lived in an apartment prior to that. And I could be found riding my bike around the neighborhood, trying to catch fireflies while going at full speed.
And what was your relationship with Star Wars at that time?
I watched 4, 5, and 6 and was obsessed with them. It was family time. Usually the question was, can we watch one of the Star Wars movies? Like, we loved Star Wars. We grew up knowing my dad was obsessed with Star Wars. I had, in my house, my parents were both around. They both grew up going and seeing the Star Wars franchise when it first came out.
They got to see the theatrical release back in the 70s and 80s.
Yes. We grew up on, like, this is a masterpiece. And my dad was obsessed with Star Wars. Like, it was Star Wars and Matrix. We always knew that it was going to be Star Wars or Matrix or Indiana Jones. We liked Indiana Jones. So my relationship was loving 4, 5, and 6. What about you? What were you doing 20 years ago?
This was the prequel era, right? For me, I was 11 years old at the time.
Uh-huh.
I was already wanting, desperately to become a teenager, to take that next step in life, right? Growing up with Star Wars, that was something my father and I had shared.
Uh-huh.
It was one of the ways that I bonded with my father. I bonded with my father watching things that he liked because my dad is one of the smartest people I know. He's an engineer, insanely smart.
He is incredibly smart.
So I craved these experiences. Yeah. I craved the experience of watching these movies with him. So if it wasn't Star Wars, it was James Bond. Okay. If it wasn't James Bond, it was Indiana Jones. Mm-hmm. It was those kind of movies, and Trek too. But it was those kind of things that I used to bond with my father before both of us got into scouting. I did scouts with my father as well. So that was how Star Wars became so ingrained in me, because that was, for me, that was my in to my father.
Gotcha.
In a way.
That's cool.
In 1999, first of all, 1999, huge year for movies.
Great music.
Huge year for everything.
Music.
You mentioned
NSYNC, Backstreet Boys, Britney Spears.
Like you mentioned Matrix earlier. Matrix came out in 1999.
Yeah, I know.
Matrix, Fight Club, American Beauty, Sixth Sense, American Pie, The Mummy, Austin Powers, Green Mile, Office Space, Blair Witch Project, and speaking of horror, the Wild Wild West movie with Will Smith.
I liked that movie. Never saw Blair Witch Project because scary. I liked Wild Wild West, but I was also 8. Wild Wild West was good. I can't go back and watch it now, though.
Well, you're not a masochist. But for me, that year, this is a movie that I talk about more than all of the others. That was The Phantom Menace. Like, seriously, to this day, I do talk about those other movies, but Phantom Menace comes up in my conversation so much more than all those others. Like, it's left that impact for me. Leading up to that in 1999, when the trailer was first released, and you hear that quintessential John Williams music, and you're like, what is going on? Because at that point, it had been well over a decade since we had a Star Wars movie. I had no idea this was coming. This was pre-internet for my household. I went to go see a movie and I saw the trailer for this. The opening trailer had that it had such a tone to it where I almost immediately recognized it as having that Star Wars feel. And I thought to myself, okay, we're getting something that's kind of like Star Wars. It's that opening scene where the Gungans are walking through the fog.
Right.
Which, that scene in the movie was not as cool as it was in the trailer, but it definitely built up the hype. And I want to talk about the hype around this movie in a second. As the trailer went along, you get introduced to all of these new characters. All these new characters are coming to life before your eyes. Star Wars is being reborn right in front of you in 1999. As a kid that didn't think that just wasn't going to happen. And it was happening before me. And I was so excited. I was so fired up to be able to see this universe grow and expand and to continue to explore it as I'm growing up and for it to be part of my development in that way. After I saw that trailer, I started noticing it popping up everywhere. To this day, I've not seen the kinds of promotions that Phantom Menace had back in 1998, 1999. I've not seen that kind of promotion today. It was everywhere. Most notably for me, I remember seeing it all the time at Target, Best Buy, McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King. I love Burger King the best because they had the big kids meal. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to be a big kid. I thought I had outgrown the kids meal. I was like, I'm ready to be a big kid.
I still order kids meals. It's the truth. I do.
They're economical if that's all you're going to eat.
Yeah. Sometimes you get a cool toy with it too.
Exactly. And they had the coolest toys. Like Burger King had the glasses, those collectible glasses that you could get that had all of the characters on them. This was before we knew what those characters were, but we had Obi-Wan Kenobi, we had Darth Maul, and the toys for all of them as well. They promoted this movie so well. The hype was turned up to 11 going into this movie, for me at least. I just remember seeing it everywhere. As May 17th, 18th came along, I was bursting. To this day, I don't remember who I went to see the movie with. Mm-hmm. Because all I can remember from that first experience is that opening crawl.
Right.
And that quintessential John Williams music getting you hyped saying, this is new Star Wars coming at you right now. Are you ready? At the time, I was not. I thought I was, but I was not. Because I loved this movie right out of the gate.
I remember finding out there was a new Star Wars and we were all super hyped. There was excitement. You know, it was a new Star Wars movie. And of course, like, I was 8 years old. Anything Star Wars related was going to be super exciting because we grew up on Star Wars. And I remember after the movie had come out, or even like during the promotional times, we got like the spoons that were like lightsabers. You could actually push a button out of the cereal boxes. For that Christmas, we all ended up with a lightsaber that Santa brought. There was a purple one, a green one, and a blue one. The purple one was supposed to be Mace Windu's. Even though you didn't see his lightsaber at that point, it was known that Mace Windu was going to have a purple lightsaber. So we ended up like with these ones that fully retracted in and fully extracted out, like came all the way out. So you just have the hilt, not like the ones that you get now where you still get like just a little bit of the blade out of it. It all went all the way in, and then you could swing it out and push the button and it swings all the way out.
I still have one of those in my closet right now.
Yeah, mine's somewhere at the house. And I remember seeing it and being excited to see it. And I remember being, 8 and anything was going to be super cool. I mean, we were going to the movie theaters as a family, not something we did all the time just because couldn't afford it every single time. But we went and saw Star Wars and it was exciting to see Star Wars.
It was just really cool to see it being reborn and revitalized, for it to introduce this different side of this universe. Because like in the trailer, first of all, at 1999, graphics were dope.
Yes, for that time, yes.
Exactly. I mean, now they've of course spent some time to remaster that. They've remastered that. They've remastered the movie since then.
Yes.
At the time when it first came out, like those graphics were unreal. I saw it as a pioneering effort to get the graphics in that movie to where they were, because I feel like all the movies after that, even the ones that weren't Star Wars, built off of the work that Phantom Menace did in that field. It was just really cool to see. It was like the Avatar of the time, right? Like,
yeah, okay.
Really innovative graphics that kind of showed you, hey, we have this technology now that we can do all these really cool things with. Pave the way. Mm-hmm. Just the overall energy that you got, this new revitalizing energy from that initial trailer. Energy was invigorating for me as an 11-year-old that grew up with Star Wars, that had deep, deep roots within me because of how Star Wars became important to me. It had that same grand scope of the original trilogy. So we got that grand scope, like, hey, this is important.
Mm-hmm.
You just get that from the trailer. These new characters that you get. One thing I thought was really cool, you see two Jedi, you know, we would come to know them as Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan. This is a master and apprentice combo that are in their prime, working together in this movie. And that's a really exciting thing to see.
Right.
Because before, we had, you know, Alec Guinness and Mark Hamill.
Mm-hmm.
So we only really got to see, you know, Mark Hamill doing his thing.
Right.
We didn't get to see a ton of development from a master in his prime and his apprentice.
Right.
His Padawan learner. And just the overall design of everything is gorgeous. You get these shots of these new fantastic looking spaceships, the cities, the landscapes. All of these were done in such a dramatic way, but still so distinctively Star Wars.
Right.
That just got me so fired up to watch this movie. I'll end it there. I'll stop geeking out about just the trailer.
I don't really remember too much about the actual trailer. There's also other cool stuff probably happening in 99, like the Backstreet Boys and NSYNC came out with new albums at the end of 99.
Millennium?
Yeah. I was more obsessed with what music was coming out in that year than I was about movies.
For me, it was both.
Yeah.
I was an escapist.
As a dancer, like, music was... I also had, like, a little Walkman, the CD ones, and I would just ride my bike and go outside. I like to play outside.
Who didn't at that age? This was before iPads were a thing.
This is true. So we can start going into the actual movie. This is where I have a lot more to say.
So... Talk about your viewing experience of it over the years and how that's kind of developed for you.
Yeah. So I remember being younger and being excited about it. I thought it was super cool because, again, I was 8. You're not the most mature or wise human being at 8 years old. You know, you think you know everything, especially when you're the oldest. And at that time, I was the oldest of 3 kids. So I know a lot of, like, big things and even little tiny things flew over my head because I was just like, this is Star Wars. And really, I was just really excited about the fight scenes because I know every Star Wars movie, there's got to be some kind of fight scene somewhere at some point. And the fact that they started off the whole movie with, like, scrimmage of droids shooting at our Jedis, that was really enticing to me. But the older I got and the more, like, when episode 2 came out, I started to realize how much I actually didn't like the movie. How much I don't want to use the word detested the movie, but it just wasn't, it's not the Star Wars I like. It's not the foundation and bone structure of Star Wars that I truly am, like, a big fan of. Because you can watch, like, if you look at 7, 8, and 9, they are constructed almost identical to 4, 5, and 6. I don't see that with 1, 2, and 3. It was a lot different than the original that I loved. When I got older and started watching, like, Clone Wars and then Revenge of the Sith, I realized how much Phantom Menace was cheesy. And as a girl, like, young girl, I was like, oh, Padme's awesome. She's super dope. Like, this is a character I can get with because she's not just this, like, princess. She's this head of all things. Like, she's
a strong diplomat.
Yeah.
And, like, she knows what she wants. She goes after it.
Right.
She doesn't take any crap.
And we've only seen, up to this point, the only other female lead we've seen has been a princess.
She was very headstrong too, though.
I agree, but our focus wasn't on Leia. It was, Leia's Luke's sister. We have Padme Amidala, who is standalone, her own person in the first movie.
Right, so she wasn't burdened with any ties
to
other characters at that point.
Exactly. And so young me was like, oh, that's super cool to see this, like, woman on the screen, this young girl on the screen who's, like, taking and stepping into her own. And then, you know, when she stands up and says, no, that's my decoy, I'm actually one, like, that's super dope. Like, that was cool. But as I got older, I was like, wow, you're actually really cheesy. Like, the lines were really cheesy, and just a lot of it was, when I started to understand it more, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like Star Wars. It looks like Star Wars. It gives me Star Wars vibes, but it doesn't sit in me as, like, a Star Wars movie.
Okay. Give me more.
Okay. Well, I didn't like the new ships. I thought the ships were a little too advanced for it to be a prequel.
So here's my thing with that. This is a world that's untarnished by the ensuing conflicts. right?
Okay.
Because during 4, 5, and 6, that's during the rebellion. You have two choices in that area. You have the Empire, where everything looks the same, right?
Right.
And then you have the rebellion, where they are scrounging up anything and everything they can.
Right.
To make things happen, to actually have ships.
Right. So for me, because this was supposed to be years, a good, we're setting this apart as prequels. I think to myself, if I were to make a prequel about my movie from here, I wouldn't have a cell phone in the first couple of years because that wasn't invented yet. And I felt like the ships itself, they looked a little too new for prequel, in my opinion. I do have to say, I really liked in the prequel era and in the Phantom Menace, we get to see the Jedi Temple. We get to see the construction of that because I'd only ever gotten that from video games and from my dad reading us Star Wars books. So we get to play with that Jedi Order and where are they and what do they do? And we've only ever gotten that from the Knights of the Old Republic and from the video games that kind of set us up before and even during. But we were talking about this when we watched it last night. Why are we introducing really cool tech and never seeing it again?
I think we do see it again.
Those guns, I don't remember seeing ever again. The ones that can stick to the ceiling and it's like, nee, and we get to go up. We see it in 4 when Luke saves Leia and is like, and swings across. That's really it. We don't really ever see force jumps, force runs, or speed runs until Rey.
At the time, they didn't have the kind of technology that would make that work very well.
And I agree. I think that if you have the technology, utilize it. But I think in the Phantom Menace, it was overdone. I think they did it too many times to where it's like, okay, I get it, but I've never seen this before. That's dope. Don't get me wrong. That's super cool that they can run super fast and they can jump super high. But they put it so many times in the Phantom Menace, and then we don't see it much again in Clone Wars or in Revenge of the Sith. And I'd be...
Are you talking about the Jedi's abilities, or are you talking about the technology like the grappling hook?
All of the above.
What?
I don't see it as much than when they do it in Phantom Menace. And then you go to the next couple ones. Okay, the big fight in Revenge of the Sith. Yeah, I see them do some Jedi jumps and all that cool stuff. But it's not as hey, look what they did. It's just kind of assumed, hey, that's what they did. That's just my opinion. I can be totally wrong and stuff, but at the same time, I just didn't like the fact that this was not a consistent thing. Also, the movies were not consistent, in my opinion. I didn't feel like Phantom Menace had consistency, and I told you that, that last night. The jump scenes give me a headache. The amount of times they jump from scene to scene to do nothing drives me insane. It does. We make a jump scene just so Qui-Gon Jinn can be like, stay here at the ship. I'll be right back. We have unfinished business. And then jump scene again. I'm like, okay, cool. Nothing happened. Or jump scene to Anakin being in the cockpit, still not moving. And then jump scene back to fight scene. Why did we need to cut the fight scene in that moment? Nothing happened. It's my opinion, though. I didn't like the Phantom Menace. Jar Jar Binks needs to go away. The remasters, they just need to take Jar Jar Binks out of the whole thing. Disney, I will call you personally.
I'll partially agree with you on Jar Jar Binks. I think Jar Jar as a character is good. I thought their execution on the character was questionable at times. To me, so Jar Jar in this movie, in later movies, you find out he actually is sort of an ambassador type. He plays an ambassador type role. But this movie really sets him up to be in that ambassador type role. I liked his development towards that ambassador type role for the Gungans on Naboo, and working in concert with Padme. What I didn't like about Jar Jar was, he was so very obviously used for comedic relief in this. Mm-hmm. Star Wars, it always has that appeal, that appeal for children. It has to have that appeal for children. Right. And it has to speak to children in a particular way. And I think Jar Jar Binks was that for kids. However, I don't think that appeal did anything for the story or his development.
Right.
A lot of his moments in this movie weren't scenes. They were bits that didn't really fit in anywhere.
Right.
It was kind of jarring at times, and they felt sort of unnecessary.
Well, it's everyone has that one person in their life, whether at work or in your group, that they try to be the funny person, and everyone, they say something and nobody responds to it. That's Jar Jar Binks. Because there are so many moments where he says something and they pause like a comedian would, and nothing happens. moving right along. Story still, please. That would be great. Thank you.
I partially agree with Jar Jar. I don't completely despise Jar Jar as a character.
Right.
For me, the way that he was utilized didn't entirely work for
No.
me because he didn't really have scenes. He had bits,
Mm-hmm.
and those bits kind of took me out of the movie.
Right. As an addition to that, it would have been nice to understand him a little bit better.
I can see that.
It's very difficult, even as like an adult, because we rewatched it last night. I still had to stop for a second and replay the words in my head slower and sound them out a little bit longer because I couldn't. It's still really difficult to understand what he says. Say Misa one more time.
So I get that you didn't like Jar Jar.
No, I did not like Jar Jar. Honestly, didn't like Jar Jar. Didn't like the two alien dudes that were like head of the Trade Federation. They were also annoying. Oh, we're big and bad. Ah, don't shoot me. Oh, we're big and bad. Ah, don't shoot me. It was like really whiplashy over there. I really liked Padme's bodyguard, like the main dude. He never shows up again. He's dope. He had good lines. Also, did not like that they killed off Qui-Gon. Would have loved to see Liam Neeson kind of continue a character for a little bit more. I know why he couldn't. I know why he needed to stay out of it. But it would have been nice to have him a little bit. And Ewan McGregor, I like him as Obi-Wan, and I was really happy to have him as Obi-Wan. He made my heart happy because I like him as an actor. But he had some cheesy lines too, and I was like... The writing was a little bit better by Clone Wars. Writing got a lot better when Disney took over. I like the Disney versions.
I like all the versions.
I know. Also, pod racing. Almost fell asleep watching that last night.
How could you fall asleep during... First of all, listen. The pod racing was cool. You literally just yawned when I said that.
I'm sorry. I think, okay, I agree with you. The pod racing was cool. I was just tired and started falling asleep during the pod racing.
So here's my thing with the pod racing. I think it's a really cool part of the movie, and it's highly entertaining. It has a really cool energy. I think for me, the message that you're supposed to get from the pod racing is this is the only human that can do this. We're meant to assume that Anakin has these special powers, these Jedi powers, these quick reflexes. I don't think the pod racing, the way that it was framed up, illustrates that in an effective way.
I agree.
But I feel like that's the message that we're supposed to get from the pod racing, which was still entertaining. None of the shots during the pod racing were like, oh, that's where he was seeing something happen before it actually happened.
Right.
He saw Sebulba try to cut him off, and he preemptively dodged it, and then Sebulba crashed into a rock or whatever.
Right, which they alluded to multiple times.
Exactly.
But we never saw it.
They didn't execute on that during the pod racing, and that was the only disappointing part about the pod racing for me. They set up this entire race as an illustration and a testament to Anakin's abilities, but it never really showed it, other than him winning.
Right.
It was still super much...
Super much?
It was still super much fun.
Super much fun.
It was super much fun.
Well, and I mean, don't get me wrong, the pod racing was cool. I mean, we played the N64 version of pod racing.
Yeah, it was dope.
Yeah, we had an N64 and, played that thing. I think my brother still has it, and it still works. I don't know, last night it was more so I'm really tired, and I really don't like Phantom Menace. And I started falling asleep. I also was learning a lot of new things. I don't ever remember watching The Phantom Menace and understanding the midichlorians comments.
What did you think about them introducing that?
They don't do anything else with it. They do nothing. We never, ever, 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 ever really dive into that. And it took until I was 27 years old to actually be like, oh, that's what that is. Oh, there you are, Peter.
What else did you expect them to do with it? Or what else would you have wanted them to do with it?
Okay, jumping ahead to 2019, we learn Rey's true heritage. Would have probably liked to know that there was midichlorians around that aspect, because they were talking about how it was he was a chosen one. He had a high count of midichlorians. Well, wouldn't Rey also have a high count of midichlorians because she was on the other end of the spectrum, quote unquote, of the Skywalkers. Would have loved to have, we just get this Rey character just jumps into our lives in a Star Wars flick and is a Jedi. But why is she a Jedi? We would have liked to see that full circle moment. Oh, Qui-Gon talked about this. Here we are again. This makes sense. Boom.
Okay.
They couldn't go back in time and fix the other movies. But
for me, I thought I didn't think it needed any more explanation. I got what I needed from that.
I think it was a good explanation for the first movie. Would have liked to see it as a continuing theme.
Would you have wanted to see it as a reintroduction? Oh, by the way, remember 8 movies ago?
Yeah. I think it would have been really, really cool to go back and be like, oh, this makes sense because we saw Obi-Wan test Anakin's blood all the way from the ship after Qui-Gon took some. Said it was a super high count of midichlorians. Would have loved to have seen that continually go through the first 3 of this is why we believe he's the one. This was our original basis of him being the one, and he's going to continue to build upon that. They can't really do anything about it in 4, 5, and 6 because those were already made. But then to reintroduce that in 7, 8, and 9 as Rey is this unknown character, whereas Anakin was known, we knew where Anakin was going to be. At this point, we knew exactly who Anakin was going to turn into. We knew where his path was. We knew the side he was going to take. Already knew that. But we have this character who we have nothing backing her up. Would have loved to see, a test of midichlorians by somebody. Maybe, Leia and Luke. Somebody.
There's no more Jedi Temple. They don't have... That technology was likely lost.
Okay, that would be fine. But was that explained? It was just kind of assumed that technology was lost.
So you were looking for scientific reinforcement to validate Rey's abilities.
No, I was looking for full circle connections, whereas sometimes I feel like the Star Wars saga is a little too linear with pockets of, this is really cool, we're never gonna see this again. Pocket in a pocket here, this is really cool, but we're gonna just throw that in that technology was lost, we're not going to use it again. It was more linear, where it had connections, it had a straight line that went through it, but I would like to see this full circle moment. If they're not going to make consistent little details in the first prequel saga part of it.
See, I think they
irritated me.
I think they do, though. They show that, talking about the technologies, right? In this one, we have the underwater breathers. Mm-hmm. And we have Padme and crew with their, Batman guns. Their Batman grappling hook.
Yes.
I feel like we get other versions of that in the next movies. There's other technologies that we're introduced to as well. So it's oh, the Jedi don't just have that. I mean, they literally have a Batman belt full of all these gadgets,
right.
like James Bond would. All these things that help them do their job. And so it's not just the underwater rebreathers.
Which we never see again.
Exactly. When would you have liked to see that again?
I don't know. Acknowledge that technology has developed. Because, again, going back to what I was saying, yes, because we had the ability to create really cool stuff in a prequel, there's still a progression of technology. Even if you lose some technology, there's still some form of progression on either side. And we see that in 5, 6, or 7, 8, 9 of the Resistance with higher technology than before, than the Empire had. I can understand where the rebellion still didn't have that technology. They lost a lot of their technology. They're still scrounging. But I would have liked to see that progression in technology and not kind of a jumbled up, okay, we have some really cool tech here, but we don't have it here. And then we have things that are kind of like it here, but not 100%.
To me, it was not a simple case of it's missing here. We already showed this to you. I'm not going to beat you over the head with it. So we're going to show you some of the other cool stuff that we have. That was the message that I got. But I can see where you're coming from.
There's opportunities. And I think for me, it's just a consistency thing. I love finding the consistent moments, taking Harry Potter, for example. I love finding those consistent moments that make those movies fit. a zipper, where I understand Star Wars does, and I understand where 1, 2, and 3 fit into play. But I love the things that make those movies consistent throughout, that kind of spreads it across like butter, that are not the most obvious things, that make me feel like it's Star Wars. Or, for Harry Potter, it's Harry Potter. Like the consistency of, they have a very specific way that they do Christmas. And it's not in every single movie, but when they do have a Christmas in a movie, it is seamlessly like the Christmases prior to. And there's that consistency there. There's that consistency with the different holidays and the way that they introduce characters and kill off characters. Like just in those minor details that they kind of sew in. It would have made 1, 2, and 3 a little bit more Star Wars if they had had a little bit more consistency moving forward into 4, 5, and 6, and then 7, 8, and 9.
Okay. We see different things.
Yes, we do.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Talking about a piece of technology that does develop. In Phantom Menace, we get to see a proto version of 3PO.
Yeah, that was pretty cool. But he gets left behind, and I was sad.
But we see him continue to develop. He wasn't really left behind, though.
He was left for Anakin's mom.
Yeah, but we know we see him again.
I know, but still. That is a consistent thing that I really do appreciate. Like, in every single Star Wars movie, you get to see C-3PO and R2-D2.
You get to see Anthony Daniels as C-3PO.
Yeah.
In every single movie. For 9 movies, that Ben has done 3PO.
Yeah. That's really nice. I appreciate that. Like, I think that's a really cool aspect as we get C-3PO and R2-D2 kind of plastered through every movie. They're the only characters in every single Star Wars movie. Like, they're there from start to finish. That's really nice.
I agree. It's heartwarming because we're already familiar with 3PO and R2-D2. To me, those, aside from the general I could feel the spirit of Star Wars in The Phantom Menace, but visually, having that visual connection to the originals, 4, 5, and 6, we have 3PO and R2-D2.
Yeah.
To give you that visual tie that says, this is Star Wars.
Right.
It's like crumbs.
Yeah.
I really liked that piece of it. How that part is, at least for full circle.
Yeah. I mean, that's just my opinion. Like, I analyze this particular movie because I went in expecting Empire Strikes Back, New Hope, got Phantom Menace.
I went in there expecting Star Wars.
Yeah, and I think that's where I fell short, was I should not have gone in expecting it to be as moving for me as 4, 5, and 6. Another piece of tech that I wanted to see again, and we never really got to see again, was the dual lightsaber. So dope. Only seen, and I know it's in Clone Wars, and I know all that, like, blah, blah, blah. But, like, we don't see another Sith or Jedi wield a dual lightsaber, and it's so cool. And Rey's doesn't count. Dark Rey doesn't count.
Let's talk about Maul in general.
He's just dope. That's the only part of this movie that I genuinely love, is the bad guy. Again,
in this movie, prior to this, we saw old Sith, Darth Vader, who, good, bad, or indifferent, he didn't really move around very fast, and it wasn't really until...
his arthritis was kicking in.
Right, and we get a sense that he's powerful, we don't get a sense of that, but we don't get a sense of that agility and fierceness.
Yeah.
But that power is still there, so he's still menacing.
Right.
With Maul,
he's actually young.
We, again, just like with the Jedi, we get to see a Sith apprentice, as we come to find out, in his prime.
Right.
We get to see him doing these really cool spins, superior choreography. To me, the choreography for his fight scenes are the best of the entire series.
I would agree with you on that one.
I would probably put this up there at the top. So, Duel of Fates and The Last Jedi Throne Room. And those are my top 2.
Yeah, that one was good. I'm trying to categorize my favorite fight scenes.
And this is, I'm not talking about like the weight of the fight scenes. I'm talking about just the visual look of it.
Right.
Because I understand that, in 4, 5, and 6, we do get fight scenes that have a lot of emotional weight to them.
Right.
And they're very heavy.
Right. I still would say 6 is my favorite fight scene between Luke and Darth Vader. I really love, while there's not a whole lot of saber on saber, I really just love the way that it's more of a mental game with them.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah, and I liked that. Now, yes, as far as like saber on saber, Phantom Menace has the best one, but I genuinely, I don't know, I like the mental fight that's going on more than the actual saber on saber fights.
I put them in different categories.
I just categorized all of them as fight scenes. But again, I like mental fights more.
To clarify, those two fights, to me, illustrate the skill and the unique talents that the Jedi and the Sith actually have. You don't get that as much in Return of the Jedi. While I do agree that is a very heavy mental game.
Yeah.
And I love it for that reason.
Yeah.
It doesn't exactly illustrate these are expert swordsmen.
Right.
And that's where I'm coming from.
Yeah, I get it. I don't categorize them personally, just because for me, any fight scene, whether it be in any movie or anything, I love the mental side of the fight scenes. How are we seeing these characters play mentally opposed to fighting? I also really like the fight between Anakin and Dooku in Return of the Sith, so in 3. It's really the first time we really, really see that Anakin is capable of being evil.
I really like that opening sequence in Revenge of the Sith with Dooku. You know, you got Obi Kenobi there who's knocked out. So he can't see what's happening, and we get to see what Anakin acts like when nobody's watching.
Right.
And that's really cool.
But that leads me really quick into, we do get a taste of what Anakin is capable of when no one's watching, whether it be by accident or on purpose, in Phantom Menace. He stays in the cockpit, just like Qui-Gon Jinn says. He didn't just turn around when R2-D2 was like, we should turn around. He said, no, we're going to go fight. He still has that rebellious side to him.
Well, of course he still has that defiance. That defiance is part of his character.
Right.
That's not something that exactly goes away. Obviously, that's not something completely absent from Qui-Gon, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Right. Right. I'm just saying, like, this is the first time I've actually put those two pieces together of, like, we see that there's one of those small, consistent things that I like to find. Mm-hmm. While it doesn't make me like the Phantom Menace, it makes me sit here and like, oh, there's one of those consistent things I like to look for.
Yes, things like that were well placed for Anakin.
They were a little obvious, except for that one. That one wasn't obvious until right now.
I want to keep talking about Maul.
He's dope. And I was mad that he died, but then was happy about Solo, so it's fine.
Yes. Maul is such a cool character. Like I said before, he is a Sith apprentice in his prime. This dude is agile. Everything they did with Maul in this worked for me in a big bad way. Mm-hmm. Starting right at the introduction, the look. We don't know what this person is, but he looks evil AF.
He looks like the devil.
He does look straight up like the devil. Of course, if you're familiar with Legends at all, you've come to find out that that's just part of how all of the Dathomirian males look.
They look like the devil.
Exactly. And we actually see a Dathomirian female in this movie, too.
In Legends? Or in this movie?
You see a Dathomirian female in Phantom Menace. She's spectating up on like a ledge or something like that.
Okay.
They're characterized by very pale. They're very pale.
Okay.
They're not tattooed. They're all just really pale looking.
See, I wouldn't have recognized it because I would have thought they all looked like the devil.
Nope.
Just the dudes.
Just the dudes.
And Darth Maul specifically is the devil. Just kidding.
I mean, he's such a cool character, and their race is obviously very defined by their rage, which makes them ideal candidates for being Sith. In this movie, you feel that just by looking at him. He's a visually striking character. This was before we knew the Emperor was part of this movie at all.
Right.
Like, we don't know that Palpatine is Sidious.
Right.
At least it's not something that's readily available and apparent. In my mind, when I first saw the trailer of him, I was like, this is the big bad we're going to have for 3 movies. And I'm so fired up about it. Oh my gosh, can't wait.
Right.
We're going through this movie and we come to find out he's an apprentice. That's fine. You get to see the way that he works too. You get to see a Sith do legwork to accomplish their goals.
Right. Kind of acting like a mercenary or a bounty hunter.
In a way, yeah, absolutely. It was just really cool to see that. It was really cool to see his lightsaber. When we first see Maul, he only activates the one side of his lightsaber,
Right.
and you just see like this really long hilt.
Right.
In my mind, I saw that. I was like, oh, that's like a broadsword, so you can get like extra leverage using it. That's pretty cool. And then at the end, in the hangar, cue Duel of the Fates. And then you see him ignite side number 2. He just becomes so much more fierce. And the cool thing about that is, the thing about the double-edged lightsaber is the mystique behind it, because you don't know how to react to it. It's not your typical sword because you have that other side too.
Right.
And that makes him look all the more menacing, because you're seeing something that you've never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
Never see again.
Well, you don't. I mean, we
know.
only see like one Jedi who holds 2 lightsabers, and that's like my favorite thing. In any of the video games that I play, I always do dual wielding lightsabers. Not the double-sided, but I always do 2 because I think that's the coolest thing ever.
So Maul, you have this scene with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Qui-Gon Jinn fighting him, gradually traveling throughout this complex, and you get to the force field scene. To me, it really showed how different the Jedi and the Sith are. When the force field goes up, Qui-Gon drops to his knees and goes into a state of meditation. Maul, he stalks back and forth like a caged velociraptor.
But this is also something we don't get to see again, which would have been so cool if we saw this
It's
the second time.
such a good scene. It's so cool.
It's genuinely the best part of the whole entire fight scene. Cannot disagree with you there.
It was very well executed.
Yes.
And it really showed you who the characters were. It showed you the ferocity of Maul, the Jedi wisdom and mastery of Qui-Gon.
Well, in that, what I find really, really intriguing is Qui-Gon's not the first person to light up his saber. In fact, he's the last person to fire his saber. Obi-Wan is the first person to turn that lightsaber back on because he senses that it's about to open up. He's first, Maul's second, Qui-Gon's third.
That makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Obi Kenobi, that's his master. That's his father figure.
Right.
That fear.
Yeah.
That's fear there that he has. Instead of quelling that through meditation, you can see him use that in a Jedi questionable way.
Right.
Which kind of leads to the scene that he has with Yoda, where he says, I'm training him whether you like it or not.
Right. Very Qui-Gon thing to say.
It's a very Qui-Gon thing to say. Like I said before, they're a defiant bunch.
Yes.
Is there anything else you want to talk about with Phantom Menace? Other than, of course, we're upset that we didn't get more from Qui-Gon in this movie.
Yeah.
The music, real quick, let's touch on it.
It was probably the best of all the movies, in my opinion. I liked the music.
I love the music to Phantom Menace. It was on repeat in my Walkman for a while.
I really like the variety of cultures in the movie.
Yes. I just got goosebumps thinking about that. Oh my gosh, yes.
We don't get to see that very often in much of the movies. We see it a little bit in, I think it's Clone Wars, where we actually go to Kashyyyk for the first time, and we kind of get that same cultural shift. But this movie in particular really gave me that culture shift. Every time we saw something new, or we saw the Gungans, or we were at Naboo, or we were at Tatooine, it was a very clear culture shift.
Yes.
Through the movie.
Absolutely.
That, again, I didn't really feel throughout the rest of the series.
And the cool thing was, at the end, the celebration scene.
That's my favorite part.
I know, and
not because it's over, but because it's actually dope.
You think you're so funny, don't you?
That was a good one. I've been planning on inserting that. I was going to do it last time. I was like, no, I'm going to save it for the podcast.
You have this celebration, this jubilant fanfare. It's a very unique song.
Yes.
Because to me, that was the uniting of two estranged cultures.
Yes.
And I thought that was so beautifully done. I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about it.
This was the tipping of the hat to the original movie, number 4, because they do a very similar ceremony of celebration at the end of that movie. So it was the only time that I actually saw Phantom Menace connect with any other movie that we had so far.
We can agree to disagree. It's fine.
Yeah, this won't end our marriage. It's fine.
when we talk about Rogue One, then maybe we'll have
I did not like Rogue One. It was so boring. I like Solo.
Okay. Any other final thoughts before we wrap up?
Yes. I don't want people to think I'm just harping on the Phantom Menace. While I didn't like the Phantom Menace, I appreciate for what it was, and I will stick to that. That is my closing argument. I win the case.
For me, it's very obvious that this movie runs deep for me.
Yeah, of course.
It was not always that way. After seeing it initially, I loved it, and it became very easy to hate on it. People started making points like, oh, Jar Jar's stupid. Anakin has all these really dumb lines, bad acting, blah, blah, blah. And it was really easy to jump on that bandwagon. I was on that bandwagon for probably a number of years until I sort of grew out of that and found myself in the state of, I like what I like, and I'm okay liking Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
To me, it's all a matter of looking at the Phantom Menace in a charitable way, in a generous way. This franchise has given and provided so much over the past 40 plus years now.
Yeah.
I'm okay looking past the little things that I don't care for about Phantom Menace. The little Jar Jar bits that kind of are annoying, or the line here or line there that Anakin delivers that don't exactly work for me. I look over that because Star Wars has given me so much. I look at it from that charitable point of view and see it for what it is and how it builds the world, because that's what it's giving to me.
Right.
That's what it's giving everybody. It's saying, I'm continuing to build on this universe and give you more of this thing that you love. That is my closing statement.
I mean, I feel like if I'm going to compare it, I keep comparing this to my love of Harry Potter. That's how I feel Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. A lot of people crap on Fantastic Beasts. I love those movies. I'm greatly looking forward to the third installment. And a lot of people are like, oh, they're too dark. Oh, it's not Harry Potter. No, it's because it's not Harry Potter. It's the same world. We see a lot of the similar characters, but it's not what the people wanted initially. And so I can agree with that the Phantom Menace did continue a world for people, because I feel the same way about Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them.
And that about wraps it up for this episode of Pizza and Parsecs. I'm Dave.
I'm Liv.
Tune in next time, folks. You can catch our show on bit.ly/Pizza and Parsecs pod, or on your podcasting platform of choice. If you like what you hear, if you enjoyed this debate and lively discussion around Phantom Menace, share it with a friend. Follow us on our socials at Pizza and Parsecs, where we would love to hear from you. Thanks again, and may the Force be with you.
He's moving his chair.
I had to get in a position.
Get in position. The swivel chair was taken away from me because I can't sit still.
You're loud in it.
I'm not loud. The chair is loud.
This is true. I've seen your audio. You're not loud.
Welcome back to Pizza and Parsecs. I'm Liv. I can't make angry.
Above the rest. This is a movie that I talk about more than all of the others.
Lord of the Rings.
Not 1999.
One ring to rule them all. One movie to rule them all.
I gave you the one ring to rule them all.
Yeah, you did. I got the power. Would have loved to see No. What's his name? The dude.
Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson.
That Liam Neeson's, though.
That dude. I was getting the N and the L swap.
I was like, you have issues with Jedi names. Like, you can't say Ewan McGregor. You can't say Liam Neeson.
No. I can't. It's fine.
Cue Duel of the Fates.
For all of our listeners, he does this quite frequently.
It's so cool.
That's his favorite trumpet sound.
It's the only one I got.
Aside from every Star Wars movie starts off with the...
Hold on.
Scared me. That's dope. Can we keep that?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
That was thunder.